Most of us imagine our later years as a time of slowing down, a gentle fading. But I've identified 9 hidden traps that almost guarantee your last decades will be filled with misery. If you see yourself in just 3 of these, your so-called golden years are on track to become a relentless storm. Stick with me to the end. The 9th trap is the one almost nobody talks about, a quiet poison. When I look at older folks in our world today, a deep sadness stirs in me. I see people who've lived for decades, collected lifetimes of knowledge, and endured countless challenges, yet they sit quietly in facility corners or drift through their days as if they're already ghosts. They are breathing, but all the life has gone out of them. They exist, but they have stopped growing. And the real tragedy is that this slow fade isn't fate. It's the result of choices made day after day that quietly poison the human spirit. The first devastating trap that demolishes your later years is the poison of bitterness. I have spoken with so many older people whose souls have become museums of old wounds, cataloging every ancient hurt and replaying bitter memories they protect like treasures. They will talk your ear off about who betrayed them decades ago, how their kids fell short, how circumstances robbed them of their due. This story of being wronged becomes their entire personality, their main fuel source, the reason they face each day. But bitterness is a poison you drink hoping someone else will suffer. Every morning you choose to polish those old injuries. You are choosing to stay locked in a prison of the past. You are a captive to individuals who likely don't even remember their offense, to events that are long gone, to a pain that has no function other than making your present miserable. The elderly who clutch this poison speak with a sharp edge, create drama wherever they are, and then ask why their family keeps a distance, why their friends have vanished, and why their last years are so profoundly lonely. I've seen this single mistake wreck more lives than any physical ailment. The body may get old, but the spirit dies first when it's choked by the refusal to let go. When you hold on to bitterness, you're not getting revenge on those who harmed you. You are putting yourself through that pain fresh, every single day. You are opting to watch reruns of your worst days instead of directing a new, joyful movie. You are letting yesterday burn up all of your tomorrows. The way out isn't to pretend the hurt didn't exist. It's to realize that releasing it isn't for them. It's a gift to you. It's you deciding that old pain no longer gets to write the script for your current happiness. It's choosing your own freedom over the familiar jail cell of victimhood. The dangerous retreat. The second trap that ensures a miserable old age is the gradual self-imposed exile. I observe as people systematically retreat from connection, from friendship, from the world, assuring themselves they're being independent while they are truly becoming isolated. They talk themselves into believing they're better off alone, that others are just too much work, that solitude is simpler than the messiness of real human bonds. This retreat is never a sudden event. It's built on 1,000 small decisions, turning down a coffee date because it feels like a chore, letting calls go to voicemail because talking seems exhausting, quitting hobbies because they bring up memories of when you were younger and more capable. Every single withdrawal seems logical at the time, but cumulatively, they erect an invisible prison. This fortress doesn't just block out annoyances, it locks out connection, support, and the very life energy that flows from being with other people. I've known older people who pass entire weeks without a single conversation, with no one to share a passing thought with, no one to check in on them, and no one to truly care if they see another sunrise. They live in homes that feel like museums of past relationships, surrounded by pictures from parties they no longer get invited to, slowly vanishing from existence long before their heart stops beating. The heartbreaking part is that this exile is often born from a pride that calls itself self-reliance. They claim they don't want to be a bother, but the deeper fear is appearing weak, being seen as in need, or admitting they still crave the same human connection they did in their youth. And so, they accept the slow starvation of loneliness, rather than take the risk of reaching out. But human beings aren't designed for solitary confinement. We are wired for community, for tribe, for connection, to feel whole, regardless of our birth year. The seniors who age with vibrancy know this. They nurture their relationships, they show up for their community, and they keep sharing their gifts. They know giving and receiving connection isn't an optional feature. It's a basic requirement for the soul's survival. The mind in rust. The third devastating trap is letting your mind become a stagnant pond, covered in algae where fresh thoughts can no longer break the surface. I meet older folks who effectively stopped learning when they stopped working, who gave up on intellectual challenges, and now fill their time with passive entertainment, all while wondering why they feel so hollow, so lost, and so mentally clouded. Your mind is an engine. If you don't turn it over, it starts to rust. If you cease to give it new information, fresh problems, and novel viewpoints, it begins to decay from the inside, replaying the same tired thoughts and outdated beliefs. You grow mentally inflexible, closed off to change, blind to new paths, and incapable of becoming more than the person you were 20 years ago. I've seen sharp, intelligent people fade into pale versions of their former selves because they bought into the lie that learning is only for the young. They quit reading books that pushed them, stopped having conversations that mattered, and ceased exploring anything new. They rationalized it by saying they were too old to adapt, too ingrained in their habits to learn, or simply too exhausted to think hard. And bit by bit, their brilliant minds became self-made cages. The most alive older people I've ever met are those who stay curious until their last day. They are learning to use new apps, tackling new instruments, reading material that questions their worldview, and having debates that stretch their intellect. They know that a growing mind isn't about your date of birth. It's about your outlook, your hunger for knowledge, and your refusal to believe your best ideas are in the rearview mirror. When you keep your mind sharp and engaged, you keep your spark, your relevance to the world, and your capacity for surprise and joy. You stay vital not by chasing youth, but by insisting on being fully present in whatever age you are. The physical surrender. The fourth trap is giving up the fight for your own body, letting it fall into disrepair. I see seniors who speak of their bodies as if they're traitorous objects, passively accepting aches, fatigue, and immobility as the non-negotiable price of getting older. They reduce their movement, they abandon any form of exercise, they stop tending to their physical selves, and then are shocked when each day becomes a battle against their own body. Your body has never been your foe. It is your truest partner on this journey. It has faithfully carried you for decades, adapted to immense stress, healed itself time and again, and it has earned your profound respect and care, not your resignation. When you give up on your body, you give up on your ticket to participate fully in the world. The real tragedy is that a huge part of what we dismiss as normal aging is actually the direct outcome of lifestyle, not a fixed biological script. The joint stiffness, the loss of strength, the persistent pain that so many seniors accept as their destiny, a huge portion of this can be avoided, lessened, or even turned around with deliberate, steady physical attention. I've met people in their 80s who carry themselves with more vitality and ease than people in their 50s. The secret isn't their DNA, it's their daily habits. They chose to keep going when it was tempting to stop. They chose to protect their strength while others chased comfort. They decided to treat their body like a sacred trust, not an old car to be discarded. Physical wellness in old age is not about outdoing your younger self or reclaiming your athletic glory days. It is about preserving the fundamental ability to live with dignity, to interact with your surroundings, to be of service, and to feel the simple grace of living in a body that feels like a home, not a prison. The purpose void. The fifth fatal trap is the illusion that retiring from your job means you should retire from having a purpose. I see it constantly. People who spend a lifetime building a career, sharpening their abilities, gathering immense wisdom, just to toss it all aside when they hit a certain number on a calendar. They tell themselves they have a right to do nothing, to mean nothing to anyone, but human beings are not built to be useless. We are purpose-driven animals who must feel that our lives have meaning, that we offer something of value, that our being here serves more than just our own consumption and leisure. When you abandon your purpose, you cut the engine that powers your will to live. I've known people who were powerhouses in their fields, who became anxious, unwell, and deeply sad just months after retiring. Why? Because they suddenly had no reason to get up in the morning, no dragons to slay, no mountains to climb, and no outlet to share their gifts with humanity. They fantasized about having no responsibilities, but what they discovered was a void of meaning. The elders who flourish are those who know their purpose doesn't expire, it simply transforms. They may not be a CEO anymore, but they find new missions. They guide younger generations, they fight for causes that move them, they make art, they document their history, or they simply become the bedrock of wisdom and support for their family and their network. A sense of purpose isn't a trophy you get from a career. It is a choice you make every day to stay in the game of life, to keep evolving, and to continue giving your unique light to the world, no matter your age. The spiritual void. The sixth trap is facing your own mortality with a spiritually empty toolbox, with no sense of connection to anything beyond your own small self. As the body inevitably changes and worldly pleasures fade, as you attend more funerals than weddings, as you come face to face with the fact that your time is finite, you need something far deeper than your resume or bank account to anchor your soul. I have sat with many elderly people who poured their lives into collecting things, accolades, and adventures, only to realize in their final chapter that none of it offers any real comfort against the great questions of life. Who am I, really? Underneath all my achievements, did this life have any real meaning? What is on the other side of this physical existence? How can I face my end without being paralyzed by fear? Without any spiritual work, these questions become sources of pure terror instead of gateways to incredible depth and peace. The elderly who have ignored their inner life often get swallowed by fear, cynicism, and frantic efforts to deny the reality of their own aging and death. They grasp for youth, for distractions, for anything that will shield them from looking at the spiritual truth of being human. But the elders who have nurtured their spiritual side, whether through faith, contemplation, philosophy, or a deep connection to nature, they navigate their last years with a sense of peace and rightness. They have a sense that they are a thread in a much larger tapestry, that their life had a meaning beyond their personal story, that death is a transition, not a cancellation. Spiritual depth isn't about following a certain doctrine. It's about cultivating the inner strength that allows you to meet life's ultimate realities with courage, clarity, and grace. The financial trapdoor. The seventh devastating mistake is the financial carelessness that turns your supposed golden years into a long, grinding season of poverty, reliance on others, and constant, draining anxiety about money. I've seen people who made solid money for 40 years end up completely broke in old age simply because they failed to manage their resources for the long haul. Being financially stable in old age isn't about being rich. It is about possessing the resources to live with dignity, to make your own choices, and to cover your basic needs when you no longer have a paycheck coming in. It is about not being a financial weight on your children, not being forced to decide between medication and a decent meal, and not living with a constant knot of fear in your stomach about your own survival. The tragic thing is, planning for your financial future is not rocket science, but it demands self-control, foresight, and an ability to choose long-term security over short-term wants, skills that our entire get-it-now culture works against. People coast for decades, spending every dollar they make, financing a lifestyle they can't truly afford, promising themselves they'll get serious about saving someday. But someday always arrives, and when it does, the price of decades of financial neglect becomes terrifyingly real. The pressure of being broke in old age infects everything: your physical health, your relationships, your peace of mind, and your capacity to find any joy in the time you have left. The older adults who move through their final years with confidence nearly always share one trait. They made a habit, early on, of living on less than they earned, saving methodically, investing with patience, and looking ahead. They knew that while money can't buy you happiness, financial peace of mind is the bedrock on which a graceful old age is built. The ultimate mistake. The eighth trap is viewing death as a monster to be outrun, rather than as life's natural closing chapter, one that you can prepare for with dignity and wisdom. Our society programs us to be death deniers, to fight it down to the last second, and to label any talk of our mortality as negative or giving up. But this constant avoidance creates the very terror it's trying to prevent. I have been with many people in their final days, and I can assure you, the ones who struggle the most aren't the ones in the most physical pain. They are the ones whose hearts and minds are completely unprepared to face their end. They've spent a lifetime pushing away any thought of it, so when death is at the door, they are left with nothing but panic, regret, and a futile attempt to negotiate for more time. But the ninth and most devastating trap of all, the one that seals the deal on a miserable old age, is the refusal to accept a fundamental truth. Aging is not about becoming a lesser version of yourself. It is about becoming the most complete version of yourself you have ever been. It is the final synthesis of all you've learned, all you've endured, and all you've become. It is your one chance to truly embody your own deepest wisdom. When you rage against the aging process instead of mastering it as your life's final work of art, when you chase after a memory of your youth instead of growing into a magnificent elder, when you see your laugh lines as defects instead of a roadmap of your journey, you forfeit the incredible power and beauty that comes only from a life fully lived. The older people who leave us in awe are never the ones who look the youngest. They are the ones who carry their age with pride, who have forged their life experiences into wisdom, their wounds into strength, and their years into a powerful presence that is earned only by living truthfully, all the way to the end.